everybody. I'm Robin Lewis, founder and CEO of the Robin Report. And I welcome you to our conversation with Stacey Shulman, who's the Vice President of the Internet of Things for the group for Intel, and Nelson Petracek, who's the Chief Technology Officer at TIBCO. So today we're going to discuss some common problems and challenges among all retailers, and what the Intel and TIBCO open source collaboration are calling Project AIR, which provides the solution to these common problems. So accordingly, our topic is open source collaboration is the future of retail. And you better believe it. As I've said many times and in many ways, there is still a huge digital divide between the legacy retailers and the tech-driven, actually tech-savvy startups who, right out of the starting gate, are better enabled technologically and in many ways have major competitive advantages because of that. And Project AIR and its open source collaboration between Intel and TIBCO intends to narrow that divide. So Stacey and Nelson, let's jump right into this discussion. First of all, tell us what some of the common problems are that retailers share and that your solution addresses. And what is the risk to retailers' businesses that these problems present if not resolved?
All right, you want me to jump in first, Nelson? Okay. So let me jump through some ones that I've observed in the industry over my years of being involved there. We know about digital acceleration and the changes going on in retail. We've been talking about that for, like 15, 20 years, I think now. And there's always something new that the new thing that the retailer needs to do this year. It was omni-channel this year because of COVID, all the acceleration of pickup at curb and, which we had talked about order online, pickup in store for so long. But I think that, if I look at the retailers, and I'm going to narrow this scope to retailers that have a presence in brick and mortar, that set of retailers that have a presence in brick and mortar and keeping those stores on the in a space where you can innovate in the store and your technology and merchandising and all of those other areas that you need to continue innovating, you really need the right technical platform to do that. And as we're looking, at the trends in technical platforms and where people are going, we identified this trend of the equipment in the store. And if you've walked into any back room in a retail store and looked at their equipment closet, sometimes it's a closet, sometimes it's literally a closet. Sometimes it's sitting on the manager's desk, sometimes it's sitting under the manager's desk with things stacked on top, sometimes it's in the cash wrap. This equipment, you don't have a lot of space, but it's not in an environment that a retailer like a Target would have, as an example, which has essentially what would look like a data center in their store. And so you have to do more with less, and you have to have platforms that allow you to scale in a way that's modular, like Lego bricks. And so as we started looking at that, we looked at, well, what are the things that have happened in the cloud to allow that level of elasticity? We need to offer those same type of tools down to retailers in each of their stores as a technical foundation. And initially, we honestly thought as we started that journey that we would just find some ISV partners that did that. And what we found is that the industry is pretty nascent in those tool sets. So we started an ecosystem around that, and we launched things in open source. And luckily, we found a company like TIBCO. So what does it solve for the retailer? It allows you to innovate technologically at the speed that a cloud native company would innovate at. That's essentially what it allows you to do. It's not going to, I can't make big wide claims that it's going to, help you do more analysis or any of that. All those things are true, but it's still, I don't want to oversell what this is. It's a foundational element that allows you to get into each of those things. Now, Nelson, you want to add anything to that?
Well, sure. I'll add a couple of additional comments. It's a great way to start. You know, a lot of what we see with retailers, of course, is that they're trying to figure out always better ways to engage and work with their customers. And so there's certainly an aspect of that. So as they look to work better with their customers, regardless of where they might be, you then have to bring in the element of data. So in order to work better with those customers, you need to better understand those customers. And so to do that, one of the ways in which you can achieve that understanding is through data. Now, of course, where do you get the data from? That's always the starting point. Where and how do you collect the data? And so when you look at the reach that retailers need to achieve now, it's no longer about, well, wait until they log on to my website and I'll collect some data from them and then maybe I can personalize some content for them. It has to be much more seamless in terms of where and how you collect the data, and very much more to where they are going to be. And so there's this kind of interesting blend between the digital and physical worlds. People will interact with the digital world as long as it's seamless with their experience. And that's a lot of what we focused on when we were looking at the retail space and some of the problems that they were trying to address around, again, collecting data. Where do you get the data from? And then how do you process the data to make that blending occur? And as we were looking for that, you know, that then allows you or requires you to go out and do things like connect to devices and collect data, you know, closer to where the people are going to be, whether it's in the brick and mortar store or whether it's through some other form of engagement. And so for us, it really started with data and how we can leverage data to make the experiences that customers can receive by interacting with the retailers much more seamless, this blending of the digital and physical worlds. And so for us, we handle part of that. We knew we needed to handle more than just part of that process, and hence the collaboration with Intel. These types of collaborations are really what drive a lot of the solutions in the market today. It's no longer pick one organization and they deliver everything. It really has to be a collaborative engagement, collaborative effort between multiple parties to deliver the right solutions, in this case for retailers.
You know, I just kind of a follow-up question here. Two things. Stacey, you mentioned Target in a very positive way. It seems like they are pretty well up to date in terms of how they use technology and so forth. What percentage of the mainstream legacy retail industry do you believe are up to speed or behind?
I think it depends. I mean, were they a mall-based retailer and they're mainstream? Low, really low.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a broad category, so apologize to the ones I'm missing. I think, you know, the Targets and the Walmarts of the world, they look more like an Amazon than any other company. I mean, they're the only ones that, I mean, technologically they look like Amazon now, and in areas more sophisticated, quite frankly. So they pulled it together, both of those companies. You know, the other retailers, I would say, you know, groceries, one industry, they're really coming up strong in getting, you know, digitized quickly. Feels like overnight. Apparel retailers, you know, there's pockets of excellence there that I'm seeing, but I'd say the legacy ones, they're a little bit in trouble in you know, the way that they're going about this stuff. The way that I categorize it is any retailer that's still talking about omni-channel and the need for omni-channel, or if they should do omni-channel, they're in trouble. They've been in trouble for a long time. That conversation should be in your rearview mirror. You should be talking about richer things by now.
Interesting.
And so it'd be hard to put a percent, but you know, if I were gonna guess at it, I would say 5% of the legacy retailers are really what I would say are sophisticated. Other than the specialty ones, I'll exclude some of the specialty ones. Would you put it higher, Robin, or lower? About the same?
I would put it the same. I think, I think the legacy guys, and particularly the mainstream, are you know, they've got very complicated business models, and it obviously is a lot tougher for them to align their businesses and to decomplexify them. So yeah, I would agree with you. The other thing I want to say about this open sourcing and perhaps give it some layman's clarity. I know that maybe 2 decades ago, some of the more advanced thinkers in the industry were talking about the future. In the future, competition is going to be performed on the basis of information. In other words, suggesting that someday, which is now, people are going transformation. I mean, information is going to be transparent. Knowledge is going to be transparent, and everybody's going to have access to it, and that the winners will collaborate using that information. Is that a correct way of another correct way of putting it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would go as far as information will be transparent to everyone. I think information should be transparent to everyone. So to me, the focus is less on the transparency of the information and more about the usability of the information and the quality of the information. Right.
Okay, got
so
it.
to me, it's about curating the right information where it's created. And that's the part that we've missed. We went through this mode of take all information and just try to shove it into the cloud and do something with it. And maybe we created huge data lakes. We went through that moment in time. We didn't know what we were going to do with it. We talked about how you can get value out of data exhaust. And we all went through that moment. And what we found is we ended up coming back to our core principles of what information do we need to best satisfy our customer, to strengthen our supply chain, and all of those things that were core to our business. So I would say it's not about open information. It's about curating information, getting the right information, and processing that information, where it needs to be processed. So that to me is the value of the open source community. It's not about the value add on top of the data. That should remain secret sauce for a business. But it's about getting that data into a point where it can be used. That's commodity. You don't compete there. Use an open source community to help you get further faster in that space. So that's really what this is about.
Got it. Very clear.
Yep.
Yeah, that is key. I mean, it's definitely the timeliness and the how contextual you can make the data. So you want to make sure that you're collecting the data at the right speed and at the right time, and then delivering any contextual responses, actions, identification of threats, opportunities, those kinds of things also at the right speed, at the right time. And so that is going to make the data most valuable. But you have to also, as part of that process, as Stacey mentioned, make sure that the data is of high quality. You can move bad data around faster. I'm not sure what value that'll bring to you. So there is a certain definitely an aspect of making sure that you can collect that information, can best leverage that information again in a timely and contextual way, but also help ensure that the information is of high quality so that your decisions reflect that.
Thank you guys for that clarification. Very, very good. So Nelson, how do you help C-level executives understand the relevancy of Project AIR when many of them are, personally tech challenged, and even in not understanding the language? I mean, I run into that all the time.
Yeah, no, that is very true. And that's, my role as CTO, I always have to be careful not to be buzzword compliant in my conversations. Inevitably, an acronym sneaks in every once in a while. So it just happens. It really is around showcasing or even demonstrating the value. You have to focus on the value that the solution is bringing to them. What does it enable them to do? What is their current scenario? And what would the scenario look like after bringing together a collaborative solution to their environment, right? What is that going to look like? What is the experience of their customers? What are the experience of their staff? What is the way in which goods and services move throughout their supply chain look like? What is that life going to look like after implementing something like Project AIR in conjunction with the solutions that we put together with Intel? That is really where I find that it makes the most sense to really focus on the C-level executives and just in terms of how you explain it to them. If I drop down into all the acronyms, I might keep the architect that's sitting beside the C-level executives excited, but it doesn't necessarily get me very far. So really it has to be about the value. I should not be building a bunch of tech solutions just for the sake of tech solutions. Inevitably, they do have to bring some value in some aspect of the business. So that has to be the focus.
Yeah, a little side story on that. I was talking to a CEO of a major legacy retailer whose name will go unmentioned. But he said to me, he said, Robin, he said, these tech guys, he said, every week there's a new technology, my teams have to understand it and so forth and so on. And he said, and as far as my report, a CTO probably, I told him one day, I said, if you can't tell me in terms that I understand in about 2 sentences what you're talking about, you can leave. I mean, but that is a problem across the industry. I mean, the language is still not understood, and a lot of it isn't, as you pointed out.
Yeah, no, definitely. We see that, and that's where the collaboration helps. You bring organizations together that have different perspectives and different experiences, then that definitely can help in terms of bringing a solution to a retail. So we find that as well.
Yeah, it's early days. So Stacey, can you give us kind of a narrative, I don't know, like storytelling of an example of how this solution helps?
Yeah, well, first I would say, what is the solution? If I were going to tell a CEO the gist of it, bottom line is this is a foundation that puts you on par technologically with Amazon.
Great, yeah.
And once you're on par technologically with Amazon, then you can, the only thing standing in your way at that point, which is the hard part, this is the CEO's part to fix, that is your company culture and how fast you can absorb change.
Culture, yeah.
Right. So then, the CEO, you need a technology solution, a technology stack, whatever you want to call it. You need that so that you can be fast. And so when we look at what are the types of things, so if you have the right type of architecture, you have the right type of technology solution in place, we've seen people with that roll out stuff like curbside pickup in a matter of 3 to 4 days. From beginning to end.
Wow.
Rolled it out, got it stood up, had customers transacting with them in that form in about 3 to 4 days. That is the speed. That's the new speed of retail and technology. And so without that kind of architectural framework down, without the right technology solution, without solutions that put you at the speed of an Amazon, most retailers, we know that would have taken 6 months to a year to get done in the traditional ways of doing it.
Yeah.
So 3 days is your new target. And any retailer who thinks that they can do that all on their own, I think, there are some kudos because it's hard, but most can't do it on their own, including the big guys. They get a lot of help.
Yeah. Very interesting. So Nelson, how does a retailer get involved with Project AIR?
Well, that is simply a matter of engaging with the respective organizations, Intel or TIBCO. We do have a lot of information, of course, available on our website. I'm sure that the link will be associated with this particular recording, so that's fantastic. It's really as simple as that. You can reach out to the respective organizations. We have different contact points. You can even send an email to tibcolabs@tibco.com. There's different ways to reach out to us. but that can really help a retailer start to engage in the conversation. Where and how can these kinds of capabilities help? Where have they helped in the past? What do they enable for them? And really have that, again, conversation that is very relevant to that particular retailer. One of the items that was just mentioned too, in terms of some of the, how it can help and so on and so forth. The other thing that I like to talk about is it doesn't also mean that you have to drop all your systems that you currently have. We do specialize at bringing in or incorporating the quote unquote legacy applications that you might have in your environment, and really kind of shield them or open them up, if you will, in some ways, so that you can be like an Amazon. And so, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to start over. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to throw everything away that you currently have, because that's not going to happen. And so Project Air is really around enabling you to augment and enrich what you do have, and then provide additional capabilities on top, right? Still, building that core layer. So that's a key element. But to get started, quite simple. Just go through the different mechanisms that I mentioned.
So and that's very important, that they don't need to delete everything, all the systems they have. So would the first part of their engagement with you be kind of educational for them?
Yeah, very much. It's very much meant to be a collaborative process. Just like the work that we do with Intel is very collaborative, the work that we do with the retailers should be very collaborative. And the initial conversations are meant to be very sort of collaborative, fact-finding. Again, going back to the previous point, what is your current scenario and what would you like to see? Even in some cases, I find that you have to describe what is possible to a particular retailer. They may not even know what is fully possible today with some of the capabilities and platforms that are out there. So it is very much an educational process to start. And it can either be through a little bit of, conversation and the collaboration, or a bit of a show me, if you will. Here's some examples, here's some things that you can do, and really use that as a way to drive the conversation. And then inevitably pick something small. Don't try and boil the ocean, as everyone says. Don't try and do everything on day one. Maybe that's day two. But on day one, let's pick something small and showcase what it would look like on top of this type of a platform. And that is the best way. And then incrementally build upon that capability using Project Air and Intel as the core foundation.
That's a good point. I don't know, what kind of advice would you guys give to retailers that are trying to maximize the value of their data within their physical footprint?
Well, I think that I would start off with, one, know what your customer wants. I know that sounds really silly, but that has to be the foundational part. And it's amazing how many people forget that.
Right.
What is your customer journey? What do you think your customer journey should be? What is your aspirational journey for your customer? And what is the information that you need to support that journey? One. Two, then you get into product. What are your product challenges? How are you getting product to the store? How are you getting product displayed? How are you measuring the effectiveness of that product and where it is? How are you modernizing your merchandising approach? What data do you need to be able to do better at that? And at what cadence do you need that data? I think having that just basic understanding first, then you can start looking at this legacy system. What data do I need from this legacy system? And let me put the integration points for that. So the approach that we're talking about is a better approach on how to get information out of your legacy systems and how to best isolate those and push and pull data back in and out of those. So it's not a matter of let's get rid of those legacy systems. That'll happen over time naturally, but how to make best use of what you already have today. And so first I would start with those two journeys, and then I would look to understand where do I get that information, how to best get the information, how to best combine the information, and then start from that point. Later, you can get into, what kind of big solutions do I need, little solutions like that. I would say park that for later. First, understand your customer journey and what you want to achieve there.
You know what? Stacey's reminds me that, marketing and business 101 has not changed, right? Know what your consumer wants. And as I've said, technology is just an awesome new tool to do those marketing 101 things, to get at them, correct?
Yeah, I call it avoid architecture by resume. So
okay.
don't bring in the new shiny object just because it's new and shiny. Make sure you're driving that value and what it is that you're trying to achieve and understand. So that mapping back is very important. And the other thing I like to say is, and this has been said in the industry too, it's sort of life after social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. As Stacey mentioned, if you're still in that world of, well, I'm just trying to figure out my social strategy or my omni-channel strategy or those kinds of things, you need to be thinking further ahead, right? What's next? And that's where you're going to have the best opportunity to leverage what you have, layered with additional capabilities to really create that disruption or just to compete.
Yeah, great. So how would you, for our audience, if you were to take 2 or 3 major points or major takeaways from what we've just been talking about, what would they be? Stacey, you want to?
Sure. One, I would say, this isn't necessarily, from my standpoint, a sales pitch on use our tools. It's really about explore this topic. Look at what's available to you. The trend here is, using what you have and getting the best information out of what you have. And there are new approaches technologically on how to do that. They're not brand new, by the way. They've been around for 5-10 years, not more. And Amazon's been using them for a long time. Target's using them, Walmart's using them, Home Depot. I mean, there's lots of companies using these approaches today. So start with where you feel the most comfortable and the companies that you feel the most comfortable to provide you the right tools. I highly recommend that you get involved in the open source community, though. Open source is a trend that's not slowing down. It's not going away. It allows you that level of flexibility, and it gives you a community that can move faster than traditional off-the-shelf products. However, you want to marry, if you can get the best of both worlds, marry a really good open source initiative with a company that has a lot of experience in delivering these types of things. And so this is where I would say I'm biased towards a TIBCO type company, not just because they're a great partner, but because they've been working on connecting systems and solutions and doing this very thing for many, many years. And they themselves had to go through this transformation on their products. And they themselves had to go through this transformation around open source. And so you get the best of both worlds with a company like that. Obviously I can't advocate for one company over another, but I would say that those are the criteria that I would look for. Is if the company is not involved in open source, you should take a second look and look at companies who are involved in open source, because it gives you a view of how they approach the market and how they themselves are going to stay current and relevant. So now I'll pass the rest over to Nelson.
No, thanks, Stacey. Yeah, it's collaboration is very, very important, and this is how organizations really are going to be successful in the way in which they deliver solutions today. Again, it's very rare. These days you're not going to find one organization that can do everything, and so you really need to look at the market, understand the different players in the market, if you will, the different participants, and collaborate with the ones that seem to make the most sense for you and your situation. And so definitely it's about collaboration. It's about unlocking the value further that you already have in your organization, and then using that to drive innovative solutions for your customers and partners. That aspect is critical. Open source is an element of that. The way in which you partner with your technology organizations is an element of that. The way in which you create collaborations across your broader ecosystem is also an element of that. I mean, organizations, if they're trying to operate as a silo on their own without building these very broad, what I refer to as a decentralized network of collaboration partners, whether it's, again, suppliers or other retailers or organizations that are closely related, or whether it's on the technology side, if you're not doing that, then, again, you're probably going to encounter some difficulties, shall we say. So collaboration is key. Open source is a key element of that. Pick the technologies that are best fit to drive your value. Don't just go after the latest shiny object, and don't also think that it's all just because it's open source auto magic, all out of the box. You just install it and you're done. There's still work to be done, but it is definitely simpler now than it has been in the past.
Yeah, thank you, both of you guys. Major part of the Robin Report mission is to help advance the industry in any way possible, strategically and otherwise, and particularly in the technology area. And that's why we're bringing this webinar to you. I've known Stacey for many years. I think she's has one of the most brilliant strategic and retail minds in the industry. And I just met Nelson, but I know what they're doing. And that's why we bring this to you. So, and we'll do a lot more of it. So I want to thank you, Stacey, so much, and Nelson as well. And I hope that our audience has listened to you very hard and understands what you've been saying, because they got to get into it. And you guys will be a good first step for them. So thank you very much, and thank our audience for coming.
Thank you, Robin.
I appreciate it. Thank you.